A woman on death row, locked in solitary for over a year. No contact, no visitors, no chance of survival, let alone conception. But then, she turned up pregnant. 6 months along. No one knew how. No one wanted to believe it. But what she revealed shook the prison system to its core. This is the story of how one inmate, sentenced to die, gave life instead. And how that life saved hers. North Carolina, January 3rd, 2023, 2:42 a.m. The camera feed from Solitary Housing Unit D flickered once, then steadied. Lieutenant Patricia Walker sat in the dimly lit control room, sipping lukewarm coffee. She had worked at Hickory Ridge Correctional Facility for over 19 years. She'd seen things, fights, breakdowns, suicides. But what she was about to witness would haunt her for the rest of her life. Cell D17. Inmate Monica Harris, age 35. Convicted of trafficking narcotics across state lines. Sentenced to death in 2020. No appeals. No family visits. No interaction with staff beyond the bare minimum. She had spent 11 months in solitary confinement. Her world was a 10 by 10 box of concrete and silence. No sunlight. No mirrors. Just a steel sink, a steel toilet, a slab for a bed, and 23 hours a day of nothingness. Walker watched as Monica shifted in her bed, then sat up. Her hand moved instinctively to her lower abdomen. She looked uncomfortable but calm. Then, without warning, she stood and collapsed. Her body hit the floor with a thud that was almost silent on the monitor. But the way she crumpled, limp, graceless, terrifying, made Walker's blood run cold. Medical alert. Cell D17. Possible seizure. Inmate down. She barked into the radio, slamming the red emergency button on the wall. Within 3 minutes, the emergency team arrived. 3 layers of steel doors clicked open one by one. Monica was unconscious, her body curled inward, one hand clutching her belly, the other bloodied from what looked like a split lip. She wasn't breathing properly. Her pulse was faint. Lieutenant Walker watched from behind the glass as they lifted Monica onto the stretcher. There was no struggle, no groaning. Just the eerie, soft drip of blood hitting the linoleum as they wheeled her toward the infirmary. The attending physician that night was Dr. Curtis Monroe, a seasoned military medic turned prison doctor. He treated everything from shank wounds to cardiac arrests. But the moment he pressed the ultrasound wand against Monica's abdomen, he froze. The monitor blinked, and then a rhythmic flutter, a tiny heartbeat. He checked again, and again. There was no mistake. Monica Harris was pregnant, approximately 20 weeks. By 6:15 a.m., the entire prison was on lockdown. Walker, now pale and tight-lipped, sat across from Warden Gerald Whitman in the administrative office. A folder lay open between them. Printed ultrasound images, a handwritten medical report, a single-page summary with one impossible sentence underlined in red. Pregnancy confirmed, 2nd trimester. No one's been in that cell, Walker said quietly. No male contact, no visitors, no conjugal access. Everything's logged, everything's sealed. Then explain this, Whitman said, voice low, dangerous. I can't. An emergency internal investigation was launched. Unit D's camera footage from the last 60 days was pulled. Logs of every meal delivered, every cleaning schedule, every staff entry, every time a door opened or closed, all under review. Everyone who had stepped foot near solitary cell D17 was questioned. And yet, there was nothing. No recorded breach. No unauthorized entries. All male staff were ruled out. Even the correctional nurses and food handlers were all women. And every camera, every single one, showed that Monica had never left her cell, not once. The headlines hadn't broken yet. But inside Hickory Ridge, there was panic. Not because a rule had been broken, because no one could explain how it had. Back in the infirmary, Monica slowly regained consciousness. She didn't cry. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't deny anything. When a nurse gently told her she was pregnant, Monica simply nodded, closed her eyes, and whispered, I already knew. I just want the baby to live. She had known for weeks, maybe longer. It started with a dream. a warmth in her belly that didn't belong to the cold concrete world she lived in. Then came the nausea, the exhaustion, the strange craving for orange peel. But there were no mirrors in cell D17. No soft bathroom lights, no hand resting on a growing curve. Only instinct and silence. Each morning, before the guards passed her breakfast tray through the slot in the door, Monica would adjust her posture, pull the stiff brown jumpsuit tighter across her midsection. She ate just enough to stay healthy, not enough to bloat. She curled on her side at night, hands cupped over her stomach, whispering to it like it could hear. Sometimes it kicked back. Sometimes she imagined it did. She didn't mark days on the wall. Time had stopped meaning anything after the sentencing. But now, she started counting not days but heartbeats. The soft flutter she could feel under her skin. The way her body wasn't just hers anymore. But fear lived just beneath that flutter. What if the guards noticed? What if someone reported swelling? What if they thought she had smuggled something? Drugs, a weapon, a trick. She had no one to protect her. No lawyers. No outside contacts. If the prison system decided she was a threat, they could sedate her, isolate her further, even take the baby before it was born. So she became smaller. She folded herself into corners, slept through head counts, breathed through the hunger when it gnawed at her. But sometimes, when the lights dimmed and the hallway fell silent, she would hum, not to calm herself, but to calm the thing inside her. Soft tunes from childhood, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, Jesus Loves Me, and that hymn her mother used to sing while cooking dinner, His Eye is on the Sparrow. She didn't know if the baby had ears yet. Didn't know if sound carried through cement and womb and fear. But she sang anyway. One night, as a guard passed by during the final round, Monica sat up too quickly, and the blanket slipped. Her hand flew to her belly on instinct. The guard paused, looked through the small glass square, but said nothing, only moved on. Monica lay back down, heart pounding, whispering to her stomach, "Just a little longer. I'll keep you safe. I promise." In those early weeks, she wasn't thinking about clemency or loopholes. She wasn't even thinking about escape. She was thinking about the shape of a nose, the weight of a name, the impossible idea that someone could begin inside a woman sentenced to end. And as her body swelled quietly in defiance of every expectation, Monica realized something else. Death no longer scared her. Emptiness did. The nurse asked who the father was. Monica said nothing. She was asked if someone had assaulted her. She shook her head, asked if she had help. She whispered, "I did alone." Everyone thought she was lying, but no one could prove otherwise. That morning, Lieutenant Walker walked alone down the corridor of Unit D. She paused at the small window of cell D17, now empty. There, etched faintly into the concrete wall with what looked like a fingernail, were 6 barely legible words. "I don't want to die empty." She stood there for a long time, and she knew this was only the beginning. Before she was inmate #A0293 at Hickory Ridge, before she was a woman with a baby growing inside a prison cell, Monica Harris had a name people said with pride. She was their only child, and from a moment she took her first steps in their small Durham apartment, her parents, Margaret and Leon Harris, believed she would change everything. They didn't have much, but they had each other. Margaret worked nights at the school library, eyes tired behind thick bifocals, her hands always smelling faintly of old books and lemon balm. Leon, a man of few words and deep principles, fixed things for a living, cars, fridges, sometimes even broken neighbors' fences. But Monica was the one thing they never had to fix. She was whole from the start. At age 5, she would line up her stuffed animals and read to them like a teacher. At 9, she corrected her pastor during a Sunday school lesson about the circulatory system. At 14, she told her mother, "I want to find a cure for something." Her mother had laughed, then cried. "Then you better study hard, baby. God gave you a mind sharp enough to do it." Their fridge held not magnets, but honor roll certificates. Their bookshelf sagged under trophies from science fairs and spelling bees. Monica never partied, never dated in high school. She had goals, and she clung to them like they were life vests in water too deep to stand in. Every Friday night, even after she left for college, she called home. "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I'm okay. I got an A in biochemistry. I miss your peach cobbler. They never missed a call, never doubted she was destined for something better. And in every conversation, Margaret would say the same words before hanging up. Don't forget what your name means, Monica. It means advisor, helper, the one who brings understanding. Go do that in this world. But Monica hadn't called since the day she was sentenced. She couldn't. Shame was a thicker prison than bars. She hadn't seen her mother's hands or her father's quiet pride in over 2 years. She told herself they were better off not knowing. And yet, on nights when sleep refused to come, she'd stare at the cracked ceiling of cell D17 and whisper those same words back to the dark. Advisor, helper, the one who brings understanding. She had failed everyone who believed in her. But maybe, just maybe, if she could bring one good life into the world, it would mean their faith hadn't been wasted. Not entirely. Dr. Monica Elaine Harris, PharmD professor, researcher, daughter of Durham. She was born and raised in a working-class black neighborhood on the east side of Durham, North Carolina. Her mother was a school librarian, her father a retired Army mechanic. They raised her on scripture, structure, and the unshakable belief that education was the only ticket out. And Monica ran with it. Top of her class in high school. Full scholarship to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where she earned her doctorate in pharmacy. By 28, she had published 2 peer-reviewed studies on liver cancer treatments and was teaching full-time at the university. She wore her white coat like a suit of armor. Her students loved her. Her colleagues respected her. Her parents bragged about her at church. She was the kind of woman people pointed at and said, "That one, she's going places." Then came David Turner, 7 years older, handsome in a clean, sharp way, ran a small import-export business out of Charlotte, always wore cologne, always knew what to say, always showed up with flowers. He wasn't the kind of man Monica usually gave the time of day, but she had just turned 30. Her friends were married. Her parents kept asking when she would slow down and start a family. So when David pulled up outside her lecture hall one day with jazz music playing and a picnic lunch in the passenger seat, she let herself believe. They were married in less than a year. At first, things are good. She took a break from research. She moved into his 2-story home near the South Carolina border. She talked about having kids. She thought, maybe this is what I've worked so hard for, to finally rest. Then came the letters. Then came the phone calls from unknown numbers. Then came the day when she opened the home office drawer and found credit card bills she never signed up for, dozens of them. And worse, receipts from gambling sites, PayPal transfers to offshore accounts, and a list of business debts that totaled nearly $110,000. David wasn't a businessman. He was a gambler, a liar, a drowning man who had seen in Monica not a partner, but a lifeline. When she confronted him, he didn't yell. He didn't beg. He packed a single bag, kissed her on the forehead, and left. No goodbye, no apology, no warning, just silence and debt. Monica sold her condo in Chapel Hill, drained her savings. She tried to return to teaching, but the school had already filled her position. She worked part-time at a pharmacy, started tutoring again. But the weight of what had happened, the shame, the silence, it crushed her. That's when Terrence came back into her life. An old friend from undergrad. Not a close one, but familiar enough to feel safe. He said he was working in international herbal products, that there were ways to make easy money. One trip to Atlanta. You carry some boxes. It's all legal. I swear. She was tired. She was broke. And she told herself it was just once. Just once. It wasn't herbal medicine. It was fentanyl, carefully hidden beneath layers of wellness teas. She was arrested at a Greyhound station in Savannah, Georgia. It was a federal case. Trafficking over state lines. Quantity high enough to hit the mandatory death penalty threshold. She had no lawyer of her own, just a public defender who barely remembered her name. The trial lasted 2 days. She said almost nothing. She didn't cry when the sentence was read. Death by lethal injection. No parole. She only asked for one thing. Please don't notify my parents. They don't need to know. In the 2 years that followed, Monica became what prison officials called a ghost inmate. No visitors. No complaints. No altercations. No attempts at appeal. She ate when told, slept when told, walked the 12 steps outside her cell when allowed. But inside she was building something. Not a legal strategy, not a prison break. Something quieter, something sacred. And now that secret had a heartbeat, a name, a future. And for the first time in years, Monica Harris had something to lose. January 4th, 2023, 8 a.m. The sun hadn't fully risen, but the command center at Hickory Ridge Correctional Facility was already filled with whispers, tense coffee refills, and the click of security footage being rewound frame by frame. In the center of it all sat Warden Gerald Whitman, a stoic man with silver hair and a no-nonsense reputation. He'd run Hickory Ridge for 11 years without a major scandal. Now, there was a death row inmate 20 weeks pregnant, and no one had a clue how. He looked around the conference room. Lieutenant Patricia Walker, Dr. Curtis Monroe from Medical, a representative from Internal Affairs, the tech supervisor, the prison chaplain, and 2 female corrections officers from Unit D. Let me be very clear, Whitman said slowly. We are either looking at a catastrophic breach of protocol or something we can't explain. Neither one is acceptable. He slapped a single photo on the table, the ultrasound image, a black and white swirl of shadow, a curved spine, and the unmistakable flicker of a tiny heart. This is not an illusion. This is a baby. Inmate Harris is 20 weeks along. This happened on our watch. Silence. The internal investigation launched immediately. Every camera in Unit D reviewed. Every officer's badge log scanned. Every meal delivery, every medical note, every shower schedule scrutinized. It was clean. Too clean. Lieutenant Walker, assigned as interim investigation lead, wasn't satisfied. She was the only one who had sat in front of Monica's cell day after day, year after year. She'd seen inmates lie, fake seizures, smuggle God knows what. But Monica Harris? She was quiet, predictable, resigned, not the kind to orchestrate a prison scandal. Walker requested the full 90 days of surveillance footage from Unit D's internal and external feeds, something rarely done due to data limits. IT had to dig through cold storage, retrieve old hard drives, and reconfigure playback software from scratch. Still nothing. No unauthorized entries. No blind spots. No unexplained interactions. And yet, Monica Harris was pregnant. They pulled staff rosters, searching for patterns. No male guards had been near Unit D in over 6 months. All meals and medical routines were handled by the same 3 female officers. Monica had not left her cell. Not for court hearings. Not for hospital visits. Not even for chapel. The cell itself had not been entered without the proper logging, and every log had a corresponding camera record. There were no smuggled notes. No cell phones. No letters. Nothing. On the 3rd day, Dr. Monroe pulled Lieutenant Walker aside. I've done 3 separate ultrasounds. It's consistent. The fetus is viable, healthy, normal development for 20 weeks. Any chance this is a mistake? Walker asked, almost pleading. No, he said firmly. She conceived around early August. You'd have to assume sperm transfer somehow. Walker nearly laughed. You make it sound like she broke into a lab. Later that day, Walker interviewed Monica in the infirmary, where she was being kept under constant surveillance. Monica sat upright on the hospital bed, her posture perfect, her hands resting gently on her midsection. Her face was calm, eyes focused. Monica, Walker began, not unkindly. You know what we're trying to understand. No response. Did someone do this to you? Monica shook her head. Was this consensual? Another headshake. Did you do this yourself? Pause. Then quietly. I told you. I did alone. Walker studied her face, searching for sarcasm, manipulation, or delusion. She found none. That's not possible. Maybe not, Monica said. But it's what happened. Walker left the room shaken. She wasn't naive. She'd seen inmates swallow razor blades to get out of solitary. She'd seen women feign pregnancy for sympathy. But this was something else. Monica wasn't lying. She was protecting something, or someone. By the end of the week, the warden approved the creation of a special incident review panel. For the first time in the facility's history, external investigators were brought in, cybercrime analysts, structural engineers, and reproductive health consultants. The media still didn't know. But inside the gray walls of Hickory Ridge, everyone had the same question echoing in their minds. How does a woman on death row, locked alone in a concrete box for nearly a year, get pregnant? And why won't she tell anyone how? The break in the investigation didn't come from a camera, a confession, or a fingerprint. It came from a line in a maintenance log. A junior analyst named Theo Granger was reviewing physical access records for the prison's electrical systems. His job was boring, repetitive, and thankless. But one entry caught his eye. August 7, 2022. Routine maintenance in the HVAC and ventilation control panel behind the solitary unit. The worker assigned? Inmate hashtag L4098, Jamal Lewis. Jamal Lewis wasn't what most people pictured when they heard the word felon. 27. Slim. Soft-spoken. No gang ties. No tattoos. A former pre-med student at North Carolina A&T with a full scholarship and a bright future until one violent night changed everything. His record said, assault with a deadly weapon. But the real story was more complicated. Jamal's little sister had been attacked outside her dorm by a drunk stranger. Jamal had walked up on it and, in a blind rage, beat the man with a tire iron he kept in his backpack. The man lived, but with permanent brain damage. The judge called it excessive force. The court saw no mitigating circumstances. Jamal didn't have a private lawyer. He got 30 months and a felony record that would follow him for life. Inside Hickory Ridge, Jamal kept his head down. He read books. He helped clean the infirmary. He stayed out of trouble. Because of his background in science and his calm temperament, he was occasionally assigned to assist the facility's electrical team, under supervision, always far from other inmates. Or so they thought. When the review panel summoned him, Jamal entered the room quietly, wearing a clean tan jumpsuit, hands cuffed loosely at the front. Lieutenant Walker sat across from him, along with a representative from the Department of Corrections. She didn't waste time. Do you know inmate Monica Harris? No, ma'am, he said flatly. Have you ever spoken to her? No. Have you ever entered her cell? Delivered food? Medical aid? No. Have you ever seen her face to face? Jamal hesitated. I saw her. Through the vent. The room went still. What vent? Walker asked, voice sharp. Jamal looked down. When I was cleaning behind the HVAC panel, there's a spot, a narrow line of air return. I didn't know anyone was in that cell at first. Then I heard her cough. That night, a team of engineers inspected the ventilation shaft behind Unit D. The duct was thin, too narrow for a person, but just wide enough for air, sound, and maybe a hand-sized object. Behind cell D17, they found a makeshift pulley system, a string of dental floss and thread tied around a carved stick like a small fishing reel. It led from the vent opening down into the concrete wall. Attached at the end was a Ziploc bag, empty now but still smelling faintly of disinfectant and something else, latex. Next to it was a used syringe. They brought Jamal back the next morning. Walker's voice was quieter now, less accusatory. What was in the bag? Nothing illegal, he said. Then tell me what it was. Jamal exhaled, looked up. She sent a note. Said she didn't want to die without leaving something behind. Said if I could help her, just once she didn't need anything else. You sent her sperm? He nodded. She didn't ask for anything more. I didn't touch her. I swear. How'd you get the syringe? Old supply closet. During inventory day. Nobody noticed. Walker didn't know what to say. He wasn't denying it. He wasn't crying. He wasn't begging for mercy. He was simply telling the truth. That night, back in his own cell, Jamal lay on the thin cot staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. He had done what she asked. Just once. Just that. Nothing more. And still, it felt like he had crossed some invisible line. Not into crime, but into something far more terrifying. A hope. He wasn't supposed to feel that anymore. For nearly 2 years, he had avoided attachment, avoided talking, avoided being seen. He swept floors, replaced light bulbs, tuned out the screams from the solitary wing. Every day, he told himself, just do the time. Don't become it. But the note from Monica, it had split him open. I don't want to die without leaving something behind. He had read it over and over, folded it so tightly it tore the corners. Not because he loved her, he didn't know her, but because he understood her, understood what it meant to be forgotten while still breathing, understood what it meant to lose everything but the ache to matter even once. After he sent the bag through the vent, he didn't sleep for days. Not out of fear of getting caught, out of fear that it wouldn't work. Or worse, that it would, and someone would take it away. He had no illusions. He wasn't the father type. He wasn't planning nursery paint or dreaming about birthdays. He just wanted to give someone a chance. Someone who still believed in the miracle of beginning, even while the system told them they had already ended. That was the part that haunted him now. He hadn't touched her, hadn't even seen her up close. But in a way he couldn't explain, a part of him now existed in a place he could never reach, inside another life. And that life might matter. So when they came the next morning to transfer him, without explanation, without warning, Jamal didn't protest. He stood, gathered his few belongings, and as the guard cuffed his wrists, he whispered to himself, I did one good thing. No one heard him, but he didn't need them to. That night, long after lights out, a single sound broke the silence of the solitary wing. A tap, soft, rhythmic. From inside cell D17, Monica sat cross-legged beneath the vent, her ear pressed lightly against the cold metal. Another tap. She tapped back. It wasn't Morse code. It wasn't a conversation with words. Just contact. A beat. A pulse. A farewell. On the other side of the wall, Jamal crouched beside the HVAC panel, knees sore from the concrete. He knew they would come for him in the morning. The guards had already moved his things. His name was no longer on the roster for electrical duty. This was his last moment here. His last moment near her. He didn't speak because the duct wouldn't carry voices. But he whispered anyway, You're stronger than anyone thinks. Inside her cell, Monica didn't hear the words, but she felt them in the pause between taps, in the way the air shifted like someone exhaling. She placed her hand gently against the metal. She's real, she whispered, and she's yours too, in the way that matters. For nearly 20 minutes, neither moved. They didn't need confessions or apologies. They had done something the system couldn't explain, couldn't regulate, couldn't undo, and that was enough. Eventually, Jamal stood. He looked at the vent one last time and murmured, Be safe, little one. The next morning, when Lieutenant Walker checked the solitary logs, Monica was already awake, sitting calmly on her bed. Her eyes were puffy, but she smiled. Just once. Back in the infirmary, Monica was sitting up, reading a tattered medical journal. When Walker entered, she looked up without emotion. Why him? Walker asked softly. Monica didn't answer right away. Then she said, Because he listened, and because he was broken, too. You know this could have killed you. I was already dead. You knew it wouldn't get you off death row. I didn't do it to live. I did it so something else could. And just like that, the prison that had once prided itself on being impenetrable, unbreakable, was now the site of an impossible pregnancy caused not by violence, but by two people in quiet, desperate rebellion against their own endings. The truth didn't come all at once. It came in pieces, quiet, disturbing, undeniable. A string tied through a vent, a Ziploc bag, a used syringe, and finally, a lab report with two bolded words. Paternity confirmed. The DNA extracted from the trace inside the bag matched Jamal Lewis. There was no longer any doubt. No one had broken into Monica's cell. No officer had crossed the line. There had been no physical contact at all. Just a woman on death row, a man serving time, and a shared act of defiance in the form of life. The panel convened again. This time, it wasn't about security breaches or suspensions. It was about how to explain the unexplainable. The senior investigator, Agent Tyler McCrae from Internal Affairs, read aloud from Jamal's final statement. I never touched her. I didn't have to. She didn't want a man. She didn't want freedom. She just wanted a reason. I gave her what she asked for, and then I let it go. Warden Whitman sat motionless. He wasn't angry. He was scared, because every lock had held. Every rule had been followed. And still, a woman had found a way to create a child through a concrete wall. What terrified him most wasn't what they had missed. It was what a person in total isolation was still capable of believing in. Later that night, Walker visited Monica in the infirmary again. The baby was moving now. Monica placed her hand on her belly, instinctively, like a mother protecting something fragile but fierce. "It's a girl," the nurse had whispered earlier. "Healthy. Heartbeat like a drum line." Walker sat down next to her bed. This time, not as a lieutenant, just as a woman. "Why didn't you ask for help?" she asked. "Help wouldn't have given me what I wanted," Monica replied. "Which was to be a mother. Just once. Not to escape. Not to trade places. Just to know I made something good before they take me." The room fell quiet. Outside, rain tapped gently against the barred windows. Walker stared at her, at this woman who had once worn a lab coat, who now wore a prison bracelet, who had orchestrated one of the most unthinkable acts in prison history without ever leaving her cell. "Do you understand what you've done?" Walker finally asked. "Yes," Monica said, "and I'd do it again." A week later, Hickory Ridge's review board drafted a formal request to the Department of Corrections Legal Division. The request wasn't to prosecute Jamal Lewis. It wasn't to discipline any staff. It was to determine Monica Harris's legal status, because according to federal correctional policy, a woman sentenced to death cannot be executed while pregnant, and in many states, not while raising a child under 3 years old. 2 lawyers from Raleigh arrived within days. They asked the standard questions. Did you engage in sexual activity? No. Did you coerce anyone? No. Are you seeking clemency? No. Monica didn't beg. She didn't argue. She simply said, "I don't want to live for me. I want to live long enough for her to live without me." The legal team reviewed every inch of policy, and the law was clear: a death sentence cannot be carried out on a pregnant inmate. But this wasn't just about pregnancy. This was about purpose. A child conceived not from privilege, not from lust, not from manipulation, but from 2 damaged souls finding meaning in the final pages of their lives. In their final hearing, a female attorney turned to Monica and asked, "You do understand that this child delays your execution, possibly for years. You could use this as a tool." Monica smiled. For the first time, she's not a tool. She's a person, and the only part of me that still deserves to live. When the ruling came, it was swift and unemotional. Execution stayed. Sentence converted to life imprisonment without parole, contingent on care of minor child. The officials expected tears, but Monica only exhaled. Long, soft, steady. And then she asked, very gently, "Can I have a notebook?" She began writing that same night. Not appeals, not letters to the press, letters to her daughter. Page by page, she documented the days, the movements, the cravings, the pain, the quiet. And on the first page, she wrote, "Dear Hope, you don't know me yet, but I made you with everything I had left. May 1st, 2023, 11:42 p.m. The infirmary was quiet, except for the steady ticking of the wall clock and the occasional groan of old pipes. Monica lay on her side, one hand cradling the weight of her belly, the other holding a pen. She had asked for a notebook earlier that evening, not to write more letters for Hope's future, but just 1 page. Just in case. Because part of her knew she might not survive the night. There were no machines in this room, no neonatal equipment, no surgical team on standby. Just Nurse Clark's tired hands and Dr. Monroe's quiet resolve. And if something went wrong, if her body failed, if the baby got stuck, if bleeding overtook breath, then Hope would arrive alone. And that was something Monica couldn't allow. So she wrote, "To the one I've never met, but already love more than life. If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it. It means I fought, but my body said no. It means I'm gone. But you, my girl, you are here. And that's what matters. You're not a mistake. You're not a loophole. You are not the product of some scandal or sin. You are my defiance, my redemption, my light. I didn't carry you to survive. I carried you so something beautiful could come from something broken. I don't know where you'll grow up. I don't know who will hold you when you cry, or teach you to tie your shoes, or brush your curls behind your ear. But I hope they are gentle. I hope they tell you the truth, that you were wanted, that you were chosen, that your mother, even in chains, chose love. You are not my burden. You are my final gift. Love always, Mommy. Monica folded the page carefully and handed it to Nurse Clark. If I don't, she didn't finish. Clark nodded, voice quiet. I'll keep it safe. Monica lay back, eyes on the ceiling. The first contraction hit at 12:11 a.m., but she didn't cry out. She simply placed her hand on her belly and whispered, "We're almost there, little one. You don't have to be afraid." May 2nd, 2023, 3:27 a.m. The rain had started just after midnight. By 3 o'clock, it became a full storm, thunder cracking over the hills of North Carolina, water slamming into the rusted gutters of Hickory Ridge Correctional Facility. Inside the infirmary, everything felt colder. The power had flickered twice. The backup generator kept humming, but the hallway lights blinked like they weren't sure whether to hold on or let go. In the maternity room, a place never designed for childbirth, Monica Harris lay curled on a metal cot, gripping the edge of the mattress so tightly her knuckles turned white. She didn't scream. She didn't call for help. She simply whispered to herself, over and over, "Stay with me. Just stay with me, baby." The nurse on duty, Mrs. Evelyn Clark, was a grandmother of 5 who had seen births in far better hospitals. She'd once helped deliver a baby in the back of a patrol car, but even that didn't compare to this. "Warden, we don't have enough here," she told the on-call command line. "No fetal monitor, no oxygen, no emergency kit. How about my hands and hope?" That's it. But the storm had knocked out all communication lines with the regional hospital. No ambulance could make it up the flooded mountain road in time. There would be no transfer. The birth would happen here. Dr. Curtis Monroe arrived just after 4 a.m., his raincoat soaked through, breath fogging from exhaustion and nerves. He looked at Monica, sweating, silent, already dilated to 8 centimeters, and gave the kind of nod men give when there's nothing left but to move forward. "We're going now," he said. "You understand?" Monica nodded, teeth clenched. "No drugs. No backup. Just me, the nurse, and you. Just don't let her die," Monica whispered. "Let her live." The next hour was a war. A war without screaming, without chaos. Just low, guttural breathing and whispered counts. "Push. Push again. Good. Hold. Again. There it is, breathe." Monica didn't cry. She didn't curse. She didn't plead for rest. Every muscle in her body trembled, but her eyes stayed wide open, locked on the ceiling tiles like she was willing herself not to black out. Not now. Not this close. Nurse Clark dabbed sweat from her forehead with a rag torn from an old prison towel. "You're almost there, baby. You're almost there. You're doing so good." Then, at 5:08 a.m., in a flash of lightning and the quiet that only comes just before dawn, a sound broke the silence. A cry, high-pitched, pure, alive. A cry that didn't belong in a prison. Monica's body collapsed back onto the cot, tears slipping down her face not from pain, but from the sheer force of release. The nurse caught the baby, a girl, 6 pounds, 3 ounces, slick with life and red-faced with rage at her sudden entrance into the world. She let out another cry, and another, and Monica, through ragged breath, laughed. A single breathless laugh, like something cracked open inside her for the first time in years. "She made it," she whispered. "She's here." Dr. Monroe wrapped the baby in 2 clean blankets and placed her gently on Monica's chest. Monica looked down, stunned, like she was seeing a ghost she'd once prayed for but never expected to meet. "Hope," she whispered. "Your name is Hope." There were no cameras in the room, no reporters, no judges, no voices calling for justice or vengeance. Just a woman who'd lost everything and still gave something back. A heartbeat, a name, a beginning. Outside, the storm began to fade. Rain softened to drizzle. The wind quieted. A beam of morning light broke through the clouds and fell across the window grate, painting a golden streak across the infirmary floor. Inside, Monica didn't look like a prisoner. She didn't look like a killer. She didn't look like someone sentenced to die. She looked like a mother. Lieutenant Walker arrived just before sunrise. She didn't say a word. She walked into the room, saw Monica with the baby, and simply stood there, hands clenched at her sides, lips pressed together. She nodded once, tight, almost imperceptible. Then she stepped forward, pulled a folded piece of paper from her uniform pocket, set it down gently beside Monica's bed. "It's from the warden," she said quietly. "Your sentence has been stayed. You'll be transferred to long-term confinement. You'll be allowed to keep your daughter with you for now." Monica didn't answer. She just looked down at the sleeping baby on her chest and whispered, "For now is all I ever wanted." May 9th, 2023, 1 week after the birth. The paperwork came in a thick manila envelope. No headlines, no press release, no dramatic announcement. Just ink on paper, bureaucratic and sterile, delivered under armed escort from the North Carolina Department of Corrections Legal Division. Inside was a single-page executive order. Execution stayed. Sentence converted to life without possibility of parole. Contingent upon care and custody of minor child. Age, 7 days. Just like that, the system adjusted. The law hadn't changed, but it had bent quietly to accommodate something it had no language for. A child born in the belly of the machine. Warden Whitman read the order once, then again. His jaw clenched as he slid it across the desk to Lieutenant Walker. We followed every protocol, every lock held, and she still outmaneuvered us. Walker didn't respond, because deep down, she wasn't angry. Not anymore. She had watched Monica hold that child like it was the only light left in her world. She had read the first page of Monica's journal, accidentally left open on the infirmary table. I didn't carry her to survive. I carried her to leave something that wasn't broken behind. Monica was officially transferred to Unit E, a wing normally used for long-term inmates with chronic medical conditions. The cell was refitted with 2 beds, 1 adult, 1 crib. She was given limited access to the corridor for supervised walks with the child, no contact with other inmates, and 0 outside communication. But she had her daughter, and for the first time in years, she asked for something. Not clemency, not a retrial, just a notebook, a pen, and a shelf of children's books. She named the baby Hope Elaine Harris. Hope, because the child was a defiance of death. Elaine, after Monica's late mother, who never lived to see her daughter fall. Hope was issued a temporary ID, not a state birth certificate, but an official prison record, enough to access medical care and basic rights. There was no father's name listed. Jamal Lewis had been quietly moved to another facility, his sentence unchanged. But inside his personal locker, staff found a folded drawing, a stick figure of a baby held by a smiling woman. Above it, scribbled in blocky handwriting. They said I couldn't fix anything. Turns out, I did. Monica wrote to Hope every night. Not letters to be sent, but entries in a growing journal, written in a steady, looping hand. Today you smiled at the ceiling. I think you saw something I can't. The nurse says your laugh sounds like bells. I wouldn't know. I haven't heard bells in years. I'm afraid of the day you ask where we are. No one asked her to write. No one told her to stop. But every guard who passed her cell began to pause, just for a moment, to hear the soft lullabies she hummed. Because in that one cell, just one, there was life. Meanwhile, the legal community whispered. No one dared speak publicly about it. But across courthouses and correctional departments, the case was studied like folklore. Could a woman on death row create a child with nothing but a syringe, a vent, and a promise? Could life inside a cage force the justice system to flinch? Could a death sentence be rewritten by biology? One defense attorney in Raleigh called it, half joking, the first unassisted inmate conception. Another said, more solemnly, whatever that woman did, it wasn't legal, but it was human. Every 3 months, Monica and Hope were reviewed by a special committee, not for behavior, but for emotional stability and developmental environment. Hope passed every test. She began babbling early, responded to her name, reached for her mother's voice, smiled at the warmth of the hallway sunlight during morning walks. And Monica? She never once missed a feeding, never once raised her voice, never once forgot to say, "Mommy loves you. Sleep safe." May 2nd, 2024, 5:08 a.m. Exactly 1 year since Monica first heard her daughter cry in the middle of a thunderstorm. She woke early, before the guards made their rounds, and sat quietly on the edge of her cot. No crib beside her now. No tiny feet kicking in the blankets. Just the hum of the heater and the ache in her chest. Hope was gone. Safe. Growing. And today, she turned one. Monica had no candles. No cake. No balloons. But she had her pen. And a notebook. And a photo, creased at the corners, of a smiling baby in a yellow dress, reaching out toward something just out of frame. She wrote slowly, carefully, "Happy birthday, baby girl. You're one now. 1 year old. 1 whole year of breathing, laughing, becoming." I don't know what your laugh sounds like anymore. I don't know if you still like the sound of keys, or if you've learned any words yet. But I know you're growing. Your new family must be doing something right, because I can feel your joy from here. And still, today hurts. It hurts in the best way. The way a scar tightens when it rains. The way a mother's arms remember the weight they no longer hold. But it also heals. Because even though I'm not with you, I know you're out there living. And you, my hope, were always meant to live. She kissed the page gently and folded it into the back of her journal. Later that day, she asked Lieutenant Walker for something she'd never requested before. "Can I see one more photo?" "Just one. Just for today." Walker didn't promise anything. But the next morning, slid quietly under her tray of oatmeal and vitamins, was a single printout. Hope, standing on grass, wearing tiny shoes, grinning at something off camera, one hand curled around the finger of a woman Monica didn't recognize, but whose smile said everything. Monica stared at the image until her eyes blurred, then whispered, "You made it, baby. You really made it." A new correctional officer named Rodriguez, fresh from training, once asked Lieutenant Walker, "Why do we let her keep the baby? She broke every rule." Walker looked at him for a long moment and said, "Because sometimes breaking the rules is the only reason something good exists." And so, inside the thick walls of a prison built to hold darkness, a mother read "Goodnight Moon" by flashlight, rocked a baby to sleep on a mattress thinner than her pillow, and whispered stories about clouds she hadn't seen in 3 years. And a baby? She grew. She laughed. She clung to her mother's shirt with tiny fists. And she never once asked where she was. Because in her world, there was only one thing that mattered. Love. Real. Raw. Undeniable. Even in a place built for death. May 2024. Hope turns one. She walks now. Unsteady, wide-legged steps over concrete floors softened by blankets Monica had begged from the infirmary. She says "Mama," points to the fluorescent lights and calls them stars, and giggles every time she hears the keys jingle on Officer Walker's belt. To Hope, the world is warm arms, gentle voices, lullabies hummed behind iron bars. She doesn't know what a fence is. She doesn't know what freedom feels like. But Monica does. And every day, that knowledge gets heavier. The reviews begin to shift. At her quarterly hearing, the pediatric specialist clears her throat and says, "Hope is developing well, but we're reaching the limit of what this environment can provide." She has stability, Monica insists. Routine. Safety. The counselor, a kind woman in thick glasses, nods slowly. Yes, she does. But what about a playground? Grass? Other children? There's a long pause. Monica doesn't answer, because there is no answer that doesn't hurt. That night, when Hope sleeps curled against her, one hand on Monica's collarbone, she whispers a prayer, not for herself, but for the strength to do what must come next. God, I don't ask for forgiveness. I just ask that she never feels abandoned. June 15th, 2024. Application for guardianship initiated. Monica requests a closed adoption through the state's extended care program for inmate-born children. But she makes one specific request. I want her to stay with someone who has held her. Not a stranger. Not someone who pities her. The committee is stunned, because no inmate ever willingly volunteers separation. But Monica is different. She doesn't want out. She just wants hope out of the dark. Walker hears about the request the next day. She says nothing for hours. Just stares out her office window at the dying grass beyond the fences. At 6:45 p.m., she walks into Unit E, kneels beside Monica's bed, and says, "You trust me?" Monica looks up, unsure. With what? Walker holds up a photo. Her niece, Danielle, 38, married, no kids, a pediatric nurse in Greensboro. She came here once last month. Hope smiled at her. Remember? Monica nods slowly. Walker places the photo beside the crib. She's willing. The transfer is scheduled for July 1st. There will be no dramatic send-off, no media, no goodbye party, just a change in custody, and a mother who must pack a daughter's life into a single bag, 2 blankets for books, and a letter sealed with trembling hands. The night before the transfer, Monica doesn't sleep. She holds Hope against her chest all night, breathes her in, memorizes the scent of baby shampoo, warm skin, and the faint sweetness of formula. At 3 a.m., she begins to whisper. Stories, memories, everything she never said out loud. You were born in thunder, and every day since, you've made the storm worth surviving. You're not my punishment. You're my miracle. Wherever you go, I'll be there. In your laugh, in your stubbornness, in your dreams. July 1st, 2024, 10:12 a.m. Hope is dressed in a yellow sundress. Danielle walks into the unit with quiet steps, her arms out, eyes soft with both love and sorrow. Monica holds her daughter one last time, kisses the curls at the crown of her head. Doesn't cry, just says, "Go be free." Hope doesn't cry either. She giggles, because to her, this is just another walk, another face, another new sound. She doesn't understand what's being torn from the walls of this cell. She doesn't hear the silence that follows her. She just leaves. That night, the prison is quiet. Walker finds Monica sitting on her cot, staring at nothing. In her lap is a new notebook. Empty. "You okay?" Walker asks softly. Monica nods once, then says, "I did what I came here to do." Walker doesn't answer. But when she turns to leave, Monica speaks again. "Next time you see her, tell her I love her." Not past tense. Present. Always. 3 months later, a letter arrives addressed to Monica Harris, with no return address. Only a child's drawing inside. A house, a son, and a stick figure holding hands with a smaller one. On the back, in messy crayon handwriting, "My name is Hope. I have a garden, and a mommy in the sky." Monica holds it to her chest, and for the first time in months, she smiles. Not because she has what she wants, but because she gave what she couldn't keep, to someone who will never stop needing it. Winter 2025, Hickory Ridge Correctional Facility. Snow fell for the first time in 4 years. Thick, slow, silent. It coated the razor wire in softness, turned the brown yard white, muted even the sound of closing cell doors. In Unit E, Monica Harris sat on her cot, wrapped in 2 blankets, knees drawn to her chest, eyes distant. She hadn't held Hope in 6 months, but she still whispered good night every evening. "Good night, baby girl. Mommy's here." She still turned to the crib out of habit, forgetting for a second that it was empty. And she still wrote every single night. The notebooks had filled an entire plastic crate. 9 of them. Brown covers, dog-eared, packed with tiny handwriting. Each entry addressed to one person. Hope. There were no dates, no structure, just moments. "Today, I dreamed you were in a sunflower field. I heard a baby cry from the women's wing. For a second, I thought it was you. I wish I had known how to love myself the way I love you." Some entries were joyful, some achingly painful. Some were confessions. Others were lullabies in ink. But all were raw, unfiltered truth. A mother recording not just her story, but her daughter's invisible inheritance. In February 2025, Monica began coughing. Dry, persistent, then bloody. The prison nurse assumed pneumonia. By March, it was stage 4 lung cancer. Monica had never smoked a day in her life. They offered chemotherapy. She declined. "I've already been dying," she said quietly. "Let me finish it clean." Warden Whitman approved palliative care. He even authorized a request rarely granted. One last video message, to be stored and released only upon Hope's 18th birthday. The camcorder was set up in the infirmary. Monica wore her prison blues, but they gave her a white sweater to wear over them, something to soften the frame. She looked older now, thin, fragile, but her eyes still burned with clarity. The guard hit record. She took a breath, then began, "Hi, baby. If you're seeing this, it means you're grown now. And I'm gone, or close to it. I don't know what kind of woman you've become, but I know you came from love. Not romance, not accident. Just two people who had nothing left but a single good thing to give." Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "I was never a hero, never innocent, but I hope you never carry my sins. Because you were never part of the darkness. You were the only light." She paused, then smiled. "Wherever you are, I'm there too. Every time you feel brave. Every time you laugh too loud. Every time you dream bigger than the world tells you to. Live well, live free, and don't you dare forget that your mother loved you. Not past tense. Present. Always." She died 3 weeks later, in her sleep. Peaceful. No family at her side. No funeral. Just a quiet line drawn beneath her name on the prison ledger. Her final request was honored without fanfare. Give the journals to the girl when she's old enough to read them. Not before. Let her become herself first. 15 years later, a teenage girl sat cross-legged on a porch swing in Greensboro, North Carolina, clutching a box labeled in faded ink. "Hope's Eyes Only." She opened it slowly. The journals inside smelled of old paper and lavender. She read the first page, then another, then another. Hours passed. The sun dipped behind the trees, and by the time the sky went dark, her cheeks were wet, not with grief, but with recognition. She had never known the woman who wrote these words, but somehow it felt like the woman had known her. 1 week later, Hope stood in front of a class of criminal justice students at UNC Chapel Hill. She held up one of the journals. "My name is Hope Elaine Harris. I was born in a prison, to a woman who was sentenced to die, but chose to create life instead. This story isn't about redemption. It's about intention. It's about what love looks like when it has no audience." The room was silent. Some students scribbled notes. Others simply stared. Hope smiled, not like someone who'd escaped the past, but like someone who had finally understood it. In her apartment, the journal sat neatly on a shelf beside a photo. A woman in a white prison sweater, holding a baby, eyes tired but joyful. Underneath, the caption read, "She didn't leave money. She left meaning." If you found this story moving or eye-opening, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story like this one. We share real-life, true crime, and emotional human stories that stay with you long after the video ends. Your support helps us keep telling the stories that matter. Thank you for being here.